Have you ever woken up needing to find a wedding happening in your backyard? No invitation, no heads up, not even a, "Hey, hope you don't mind." Just a woman holding a pink clipboard and a self-declared HOA title announcing that your pool is now community property for her daughter's wedding reception. Think I'm joking? That's when I decided to dump nearly 200 boxes of Jell-O into the pool, because if Karen wanted a wedding, then I was going to give her one. With the biggest unsolicited dessert she'd ever seen. I've never believed in neighborly love inside a neighborhood governed by an HOA. Trust me, when every white fence is painted to within an inch of its life and each tree in the front yard has to be exactly 5 feet 11 per the 1998 Community Guideline Manual, neighborly becomes just another word for waiting to be tattled on. My name is Derek Langston. I'm 41 years old and live in a small, peaceful house in Maple Heights, a place that used to be calm until Beverly Monroe, or as everyone here knows her, Karen of the HOA, somehow became acting president of the neighborhood council. That Monday morning started just like any other. I was sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, still lost in lo-fi music and morning peace, when a shadow fell across my front gate. I looked up, and there she was, Karen Monroe, with her signature pink clipboard, sunglasses so large they covered half her face, and a smile that said she'd just gotten approval to build a bronze statue of herself in the community park. No good morning, no may I, no knock, just one smooth, polished declaration. This Saturday is my daughter's wedding, and we'll be using your pool for the reception. Excuse me, what? At first, I thought it was a joke. Maybe she was filming a new TikTok trend, pranking your neighbor with wedding plans. I looked around for a hidden camera. There wasn't one. Karen stood firm, one hand on her hip, expression serious, like she'd just assigned me the job of hosting the Summer Olympics in my backyard. I opened my mouth to respond, but she flipped open her clipboard, nodded like she was reviewing a Declaration of Independence, and added, "I'll be sending my niece over ahead of time to lay out tablecloths, set up a drink stand, and do some light decorating. Just leave the gate unlocked." Then she turned and walked away, like she'd just negotiated the Geneva Peace Accords. Her heels clicked down the path like a military march. I stood there frozen for a full 30 seconds. Even Max, my golden retriever, tilted his head at me like, "Dad, who was that? TSA?" I walked over to the side gate, unlocked it, and stepped into the backyard. The pool was still there, calm, clean, glittering under the morning sun like summer itself. I'd spent the entire spring fixing it up, draining it, testing the chlorine, replacing tile borders, even installing a new filtration system. It cost thousands of dollars and more than one thrown out back. And now, because Karen believed the HOA was her personal kingdom, my pool was about to be turned into an unauthorized wedding venue. I pulled out my phone and texted Greg Fisher, my neighbor 2 doors down, the father of the groom, and the only person I'd heard mention a wedding happening that weekend. "Greg, do you know anything about my house being assigned as the pool venue for your daughter's wedding?" It took 10 minutes before he responded. "What? Karen said you agreed. I thought it was cool with you." I nearly dropped the phone. So not only was Karen trespassing, she was flat out lying about my permission. That evening, I sat on my patio, sipping iced water, and I started making a plan. Not a plan to call a lawyer. Not a plan to write angry letters to the show, no, something softer, very literally, softer. That evening, as the porch lights shimmered on the crystal-clear surface of the pool, I sat there, glass of iced water in hand, Max by my side, and my brain, doing mental math in gelatin by the gallon. Karen had lied. Not only had she unilaterally decided my backyard pool would be the wedding reception venue, she'd also gone around the entire neighborhood announcing that I had agreed. I realized I hadn't just had my space violated, I'd been drafted as an unwilling wedding. Host, I'm not the kind of guy who gets explosive, but I do have a habit of retaliating in unconventional ways. That's when I remembered the stash of bright red cherry Jell-O packets buried deep in my kitchen cabinet, leftover stock from an absurd sale at Wilson's Grocery. Each box cost just $0.19. I'd bought nearly 200 of them, intending to host a backyard bouncy Olympics with friends, a plan that never made it past the group chat. Maybe their destiny was never to be eaten. Maybe they were meant to teach the HOA a gelatinous lesson. I opened Google. Search term. How much Jell-O do I need for a 20,000-gallon pool? The answer? Enough to make your entire town question your sanity. But I didn't need to Jell-O the whole thing. I just needed the shallow end, where guests would likely wade, snap selfies, and pretend they were in a luxury sparkling water commercial, just 4 to 5 inches of gelatin across the bottom half. Enough to shock. Enough to leave anyone who stepped in wondering, is this industrial strawberry jam or a failed koi pond? I started my shopping list. 4 high-capacity water boilers, giant soup ladles, summer camp edition. 5-gallon buckets, industrial mixing spoons, heat-resistant gloves, 1 hand-designed warning sign that read, "Caution, experimental dessert, cooling in progress, do not lick." The next morning, I hit the hardware store and food. Wholesaler. As I pushed 3 carts full of bright red Jell-O packets through the checkout, the cashier looked at me like I was building a fruit-flavored temple. I just smiled and said, "Pool party, just a weird one." He laughed. He didn't realize I wasn't kidding. That night, Operation Gelatin officially began. While Karen sat cozy in her house and the neighborhood lights dimmed, I quietly hauled pot after pot of boiling water to the backyard, mixed Jell-O, poured it into the shallow end, used a massive paddle to gently stir it into place. Max stood on the pool deck watching me stir the water like a wizard brewing a spell. He snorted, sighed, then lay down with a look that said, "Seriously again?" I worked like that for 3 nights straight. Each night, a new layer. By Wednesday morning, the water in the shallow end had texture. I dropped a tennis ball in, and instead of sinking, it bounced. I knew then we had reached unswimmable consistency. I added security cameras to the corners of the yard just in case of HOA revenge. I laminated the warning sign, "Dessert experiment in progress. No lifeguard on duty. Do not eat without permission." Next to it, I placed a white plastic chair. On it, I laid the giant wooden stirring spoon like a ceremonial staff waiting for battle. The next afternoon, just as I predicted, Karen's niece arrived. A girl around 16, wearing denim shorts, oversized sunglasses, and carrying a tote full of towels and an inflatable flamingo. She entered the backyard like she was checking into a beach resort, except she hit the Jell-O. She froze, scratched her head. What is this?" She poked her foot in. It squished slightly, then bounced back. "Is this actual jelly?" I stepped out wearing a t-shirt, holding the giant spoon like a sorcerer's staff. "You're just in time," I said. "We're about to add powdered sugar and maybe some canned fruit." Her eyes widened. She didn't say a word. She turned and ran like she'd just stumbled upon an alien baking show. About 20 minutes later, Karen's shrieking started from across the street. The sound was somewhere between a fire alarm and an angry school principal dubbed over with a megaphone. Max barked once. I gave the Jell-O one last slow stir. No words needed. That night, I sat on the patio, sipping cold water, watching the gelatin shimmer under the LED lights I'd mounted along the pool's edge. I leaned over to Max and whispered, "This isn't a pool anymore. This is a statement. A polite refusal they can't ignore." Friday morning, just 1 day before the wedding, Maple Heights felt tense as a guitar string, except for me. I was lounging on my porch, sipping coffee with Max sprawled out under the chair, when I heard the rattling sound of wheels dragging, a cooler down the street. The sound of wedding prep, folding chairs, fabric backdrops, faux flowers, and of course Karen's heels clicking on the pavement like war drums. She was directing things like a feudal-era field general. Sunshade goes right next to the fence. The dessert table must be exactly 3 feet from the gate to preserve. The pool view! Lemonade must have fresh mint, not wilted leaves. I wasn't sure who the actual bride was, but one thing was clear. Karen was the director, screenwriter, producer, and lead actress of this wedding saga. Around 10 a.m., I heard my back gate jiggling. Before I could get up, 3 figures walked straight into my backyard. A teenage girl, Karen's niece, the same one who squealed at the sight of the Jell-O earlier. 2 guys, about 17 or 18, wearing tank tops and sunglasses. One was carrying a JBL mini Bluetooth speaker. In their hands, towels, a cooler full of beer, and a giant inflatable smiling avocado. The niece spoke first, her tone like she was hosting a TEDx talk. Karen said we could chill here until the wedding starts. She said the pool's been handled. She used that exact word, handled. Apparently, Karen thought gelatin was a temporary prank, and I'd obediently melt away after a day or two. I stepped out from the side of the yard. Max followed beside me, not barking, just growling low like, "Touch that Jell-O and you'll see who owns this pool." Hands on hips, I took a breath. Like a museum guide about to lead a private tour. You lost? This is private property, not a wedding holding zone. One of the guys scratched his head and looked at the pool. "Dude, is that real Jell-O? It looks like a giant fruit punch swamp." I nodded. "Exactly, and if you jump in, we'll call you a breathing pudding. Want to try?" The niece huffed and mumbled, "We just needed a place to rest for a bit." I tilted my head and raised an eyebrow. "That's fine, but the rule is, anyone who enters brings a topping. Marshmallows, whipped cream, or at the very least, cherries." Silence. One of the guys nudged his flip-flop against the pool, squelch, and the Jell-O let out a gelatinous groan. He chuckled, but Max's look shut that down real quick. The next snapped, "Let's go. Karen will deal with this." And just like that, the first invasion failed. No sirens, no electric fence, just one layer of gelatin and a dash of passive-aggressive sweetness. Less than 30 minutes later, Karen arrived, wearing a pastel pantsuit, deep red nails, icy plum lipstick, and a presence like she was entering the G20 summit. The gate burst open. She stormed into my backyard as if she were personally paying the property taxes on it. "You think this is funny? You've ruined my daughter's wedding. This is vandalism. This is domestic terrorism." I gracefully lifted the giant wooden spoon from the pool. "You're mistaken, Mrs. Monroe. This is culinary performance art," Karen choked. Her eyes darted between the glittering red Jell-O, Max resting his chin on his paws, and me, holding the spoon like I was preparing dessert for an invisible army. "You'll pay for this. I'm calling the HOA. I'll sue you." I smiled. "Be sure to tell your lawyer that you plan to seize private property without permission, lied to your neighbors, and sent your niece here ahead of schedule. I have cameras, timestamps, and the full gelatin recipe." Karen's face turned crimson, almost the same shade as the pool. "This is illegal!" she shrieked. I shrugged. "Not if it's dessert. I'm just prepping for a private event. On private land." "You haven't heard the last of this." "Great. Would you like a dollop of whipped cream while we wait?" Karen stormed off, tripped on a flamingo floaty, and nearly wiped out. She turned back with a glare that could have turned me to stone if I didn't already have sunglasses on. And me? I sat down, lifted my glass of iced tea, and tapped the spoon gently on the armrest. Because I knew one thing. When the HOA crosses the line, you don't need to yell. You just need firm gelatin and a really big spoon. The wedding day finally arrived. On Saturday morning, Maple Heights was boiling over like the stock pot I'd used to cook my gelatin, except for my house, which remained calm, steady as a fortress, surrounded by fences, cameras, and a shimmering red sea of Jell-O. I sat on a beach chair in my Hawaiian shirt, sunglasses on, Max lounging at my feet with his tongue out, catching the breeze. The coffee was strong, the sun was gentle, and I was living the dream, a dream no HOA could control. From Greg's house, the official wedding venue, I could hear trucks backing up, coolers opening, people barking orders. And of course, Karen's voice rose above it all like a rogue wedding DJ who stole the mic. "Where's the wedding cake? No, turn it the other way. Left, left. Who put those tall vases there? They're blocking the photo of my daughter. Has anyone seen my welcome to love sign?" The wedding hadn't even started, and Karen had probably clocked in over 2,000 steps according to the Fitbit she constantly flaunted. By around 10:30, I started seeing guests drifting toward my fence. Yes, seriously, not to complain, not to protest, but to look. Inside the fence, the giant strawberry-colored pool glittered under the sun like some avant-garde stage about to launch a Jello-themed art performance. A woman in a silk dress whispered, "Oh my God, is that Jello? That's adorable." An older gentleman nodded, impressed. "First time I've ever seen a wedding with a jam pond. I nearly spit out my coffee. Adorable? The red gelatin moat I built to fend off invaders was now considered cute?" But then it hit me. My passive-aggressive counterstrike had been misunderstood in the best possible way. I didn't need to shout that I was being violated. I just needed gelatin, and the entire neighborhood got the message. Less than 30 minutes later, Karen's niece came back. This time, with backup. 2 more teenagers, one carrying a JBL speaker, the other dragging a cooler full of drinks. They walked into my yard like they had a reservation. The gate swung open, the warning sign still hanging, the gelatin pool still, glowing red, and confusion spread in the air like cherry fragrance. The kid in the sunglasses stepped closer, leaned in, poked his foot toward the pool. "Whoa, is this actual pudding?" I emerged again, Max by my side, no growling this time, just a cold, focused stare. I asked, "Here to chill again before the wedding?" Karen's niece flipped her hair. "Aunt Karen said we could take a break here." I smiled and pointed to the warning sign. "You're welcome to relax, with gelatin. But under my house rules, no photos without #approval. No eating unless you sign a liability waiver. No swimming unless you want to bounce out like a trampoline." One of the boys laughed and made a boing sound with his mouth. Then the whole crew retreated. No arguing, no drama. Just the clinking of ice against cans as they disappeared down the sidewalk. I gave Max a subtle nod. We just repelled the second wave. Head count, 3. Casualties, 0. Surface tension, fully intact. But I knew. Karen wasn't done yet. At exactly 11:15 a.m., she reappeared, for the second time that day. No clipboard this time, just a burning grudge from head to toe. "You think this is funny? You turned my daughter's wedding into a joke." "No," I replied calmly. "I turned your attempted pool takeover into a visually elegant dessert." She stomped her foot, pointing dramatically at the gelatin pool like she was summoning an exorcist. "I told all our relatives they could use this pool. Now what? Now I'm humiliated in front of everyone." I folded my arms. "Well, now you have. A bold red pool as a backdrop. Very striking. Match your lipstick, too." Karen flailed like I'd just squirted ketchup on her wedding gown. "You'll pay for this. I'll sue. I'll make you scoop out every last ounce of that Jell-O before this afternoon." I shrugged. "Unless you've got 14 industrial blow dryers and a flamethrower." "I don't think so." Max let out a low growl. Karen paused, then kicked over a flamingo floaty and stormed off with one last shriek. "This isn't over." I watched her retreating form, hunched like a crab that crawled into the wrong shell, then turned back to my pool. What I didn't know was that ending she warned me about would soon be captured on 3 different phone cameras with background music and captions trending on YouTube, but I had a feeling this story was about to go national. Midday. The sun blazed. The wedding was in full swing. Soft ballads about eternal love floated from Greg's backyard, accompanied by clicking glassware and awkwardly cheerful toasts. From my side yard, I remained planted in my folding chair. Max sprawled at my feet. Sunglasses slide halfway down my nose. The pool still shimmered red, gently jiggling in the breeze, as if the gelatin was nervous before its grand debut. Everything kicked off when a curious bridesmaid tiptoed to the side gate. She wore a pastel silk dress, held a glass of champagne, and stared wide-eyed like she'd just discovered alien life. "Excuse me, is this real? Like, actual gelatin?" I nodded. "Red cherry, triple layer, anti-slip bottom included." She giggled, leaned over, and poked the pool. Her finger bounced back, and she squealed like she'd just touched the surface of an alien. "Moon! Oh my God, it's actual jam!" Then she took a selfie, switched angles, changed lighting, gave her best shocked and cute expression. Then she vanished, taking with her a 10-second clip of the jiggly pool with the caption, "Welcome to Karen's Kool-Aid Kingdom." I knew right then, Karen's downfall had begun to go viral. Within 10 minutes, more guests trickled toward my fence. Some zoomed in with iPhones. Some asked if they could dip their toes in. One even asked to live stream it on Facebook. An older lady whispered, voice trembling, "I've never seen a wedding with a Jell-O pool before, but I love it." And then came the real showstopper, Dave. According to overheard gossip, Dave was a groomsman, early 30s, shaved head, aviator shades, and floating somewhere between half awake and half whiskey. Dave staggered up to the gate, saw the red pool, and bellowed, "Wait a minute! Who put this Jell-O here and didn't let me jump?" Before I could say a word, someone nearby shouted, $50 if you belly flop into it." Dave nodded solemnly. Challenge. Accepted. I leapt to my feet. "This is not a real pool. It's gelatin. You won't dive, you'll bounce. There's a chance of spinal injury." Dave just laughed. The crowd behind the fence roared. Phones lifted. Karen, busy adjusting. Her daughter's wedding dress up on the porch, hadn't seen any of this. Dave stepped to the edge of the pool, stretched out his arms like an Olympic diver, began the countdown in a booming voice. 3, 2, 1, for HOA nonsense and freedom in America. Then he jumped. The full-size man, roughly the size of a mini fridge, lifted off. He glided through the air and then, boing. He bounced off the gelatin with a noise like a rubber chicken in a blender and slid across the surface like a pancake on a griddle. Soaked. Hair plastered to his forehead. Eyes dazed, but mouth wide open, yelling, "I have been reborn! Praise the holy Jell-O!" The crowd exploded. Phones buzzed. A bridesmaid screamed, "This is going on YouTube!" And right then, Karen appeared. She charged out of the garage, dressed immaculately, heels clicking furiously on the tiles. Her face contorted like she'd just witnessed a natural disaster. "Dave! Do you even know what you've done? This is a wedding! This is my daughter's big day!" Dave, still belly down in the pool, raised a regal hand and waved. "It's okay, Karen. This was destiny." Karen spun toward me, face redder than a habanero, voice nearly shrieking, "You will pay for this. That video will destroy my family's reputation." I pointed to the fence, where 5 smartphones were live streaming. Then I smiled. "Too late. Dave just turned your wedding into the #1 trending event in zip code 75401. Just then, a little girl, probably Karen's niece, tiptoed over and asked, "Mister, is the Jell-O edible?" I nodded. "On one condition, bring your own spoon, and always ask first. No unauthorized setups. Capisce?" By late afternoon, as the wedding limped on, with awkward music and forced applause, the real party was happening by my fence. Guests lined up to take photos with the Jell-O pool. Captions included, Karen's Kool-Aid catastrophe. When HOA met gelatin justice, bounce rate 100%. An elderly man even asked to take a selfie with Max, then whispered, "You're the silent hero, kid." That night, Dave's epic belly flop video hit over 200,000 views on YouTube. Karen filed a takedown request. YouTube declined. No community guidelines violated. I stayed out there till dusk, watching the red glow of the gelatin reflect the setting sun. Max painted softly, and I whispered, "We didn't need to shout. We just needed gelatin." And a man who belly flopped at exactly the right time. Sunday morning. I was rinsing breakfast mugs when Max barked. I stepped onto the porch, and there stood Paul, HOA president, holding a clipboard that dangled like it had survived a Category 5 hurricane. To me, Paul had always been the type of guy who only appeared when Karen pulled the strings. But today, it looked like the strings had snapped. He scratched his head, skipped greetings, and sighed. "Karen called an emergency meeting this morning. Wants to file an official complaint about you, about the pool, about gelatin." I raised an eyebrow. Just to clarify, she trespassed onto my property, planned an illegal event, and now she's mad that I didn't just sit back and let it happen? Paul looked at me, exhausted. "I'm not saying she's right, but some members are worried about the neighborhood's reputation." I chuckled. "You're worried about the HOA's image? When that belly flop video already has subtitles, butterfly filters, and Barbie girl playing in the background?" Right then, the first HOA Facebook group post popped up. "We are currently handling the gelatin pool incident. The community is urged to remain calm." Which, as always, was the signal for the community to do exactly the opposite. The neighborhood split into factions, classic HOA crew. "He shouldn't have ruined the wedding." Team Gelatin. "You can't just use someone's pool without permission." Neutral, but meme-loving side. "I'm just here to see if Dave bounces again." Someone started a new Facebook group called Justice for the Jello Pool. In under 3 hours, it had 200-plus members, including an old lady 3 blocks over who once got scolded by Karen for hanging lanterns in November. Pinned to the top of the group was this post. That pool wasn't just gelatin. It was a statement. You can't run everything with clipboards and yelling. Another user posted a meme of Karen holding a giant spoon with the caption, "You shall not swim." Then came the now iconic image of Dave midair, photoshopped, with a Superman cape and "Forget the vows. Behold the divine dive." Meanwhile, Karen responded, like only Karen could. She printed out flyers. In Times New Roman, size 14, perfectly justified margins. Warning: a neighbor intentionally sabotaged a community event with red gelatin. Don't let the HOA become the Jell-O. At the local corner store, folks said, Karen came in, demanded to see the manager, and asked the store to stop selling Jello. The cashier nearly choked. Someone filmed it, posted it to TikTok with hashtags, Save the Jello, Karen meltdown, and then came the cherry on top. A 3-minute video edit, beautifully produced, compiling all the greatest hits from the wedding. Dave's belly flop, Karen's twisted face, the chaos, all set to Circus by Britney Spears. Caption: Karen's Kool-Aid catastrophe, the HOA wedding that shook suburbia. 500,000 views in just 12 hours. And that left the HOA more confused than ever. That evening, Paul returned to my house. This time, no clipboard, no HOA badge, just a can of beer and the face of a man who'd just binge-watched an entire season of a drama show, only to realize he was in it. He sat down, exhaled. I think it's time we review the HOA leadership structure. I handed him a glass. Good, but don't rewrite the rules. Just add one. No one uses someone else's pool without permission, unless they want to become an internet sensation. The next morning, Karen vanished from the map. No emails, no morning lawn patrol, no HOA-wide updates. The clipboard. Once her royal scepter and was nowhere to be found. Rumors swirled. She was consulting with lawyers. She was planning to sue. Facebook itself, she was drafting a memoir. How gelatin undermined my HOA dream, but I knew Karen had lost. Not in a court of law, not in a debate, but in the battle for community consensus. That night, I got a text from Greg, the groom's dad. "I'm sorry for everything, and thank you for doing what I never had the guts to do in 5 years of being Karen's son-in-law," I replied. "Congrats. If you want to break the ice at next year's family reunion, I've still got a few tubs of Jell-O." 2 days after the Dave Bounces on Gelatin event, I found a thick manila envelope on my doorstep. No stamp, no sender, just 2 bold words written in Sharpie. Legal notice. I wasn't surprised. I simply poured myself another cup of coffee, stroked Max like I was about to enjoy a theatrical performance. Inside was a letter, written in textbook Lawyer Lingo 101, a 12-page document. Times New Roman size 12, 1.5 line spacing. A scribbled signature. Richard T. Monroe, legal advisor, retired. I remembered him. Karen's older brother, who used to be a paralegal back in the 90s and had since dedicated his life to suing diners over insufficient spoon curvature. The letter accused me of causing emotional distress to the Monroe family, vandalism using edible semi-liquids, I swear that was the actual phrase, creating a public hazard and non-compliant neighborhood behavior. I read every line, nodding and grinning like I was browsing a Thai restaurant menu, knowing I'd still order the spiciest thing on it. I called up Jules, my best friend from college, now a real estate lawyer. Jules got to the line about weaponized dessert, paused for 3 seconds, then burst out laughing. "Derek, this letter was written by someone who watched too much Law and Order. The entire thing deserves a frame." So I drafted a full response package, attached, receipts for the Jell-O purchase photos of my warning sign. Caution, experimental dessert. Footage of Karen's niece trespassing and the clip of Dave's belly flop, clearly subtitled as a voluntary stunt. I sent it to Paul, the HOA, and to Richard himself via email. Subject line, clarification regarding alleged culinary crimes. But of course, Karen wasn't done. That same week, she filed an official complaint with the HOA board demanding that I drain the pool immediately, that I be fined for excessive food coloring usage, that all non-HOA approved events be banned from now on, but this time, something changed. For the first time, I saw Paul not bowing to Karen's clipboard. He knocked on my door Friday afternoon, holding a printed copy of the now viral article, "Karen's Kool-Aid Catastrophe Hits 1 Million Views." He placed it on the table and sighed. "We've been getting emails from other HOAs asking, is this Karen person real? We need to do something," before this HOA became a statewide joke. Shortly after, a private executive meeting of the HOA board was called. No Karen, no Richard, just Paul and 4 other members. In a dim room lit by LED bulbs, they discussed removing Karen from office. The community started buzzing. On the Facebook group, Justice for the Jell-O Pool, a poll went up. Do you support removing Karen from her HOA position? Support, 94%. Don't support, 3%. As long as I can still take pics with the pool. 3%, a top comment. If Karen thought a clipboard was the ultimate power. Sorry, gelatin is the real WMD. One elderly woman posted a photo of a Jell-O pack with the caption, "How to Fight HOA Tyranny," straight from the Walmart dessert aisle. On Saturday evening, Paul sent me a short email. "The vote is Monday, secret ballot. I don't expect we'll need a second round." I replied, "I won't attend, but Max will be in the yard, catching the breeze and waiting to hear the results." That night, I sat in the backyard in front of the still untouched Jell-O pool. The LED lights under the surface made it shimmer like a bed of red stars. Max lay beside me. I held a glass of iced tea and said to myself, "Who needs politics when you've got gelatin? Who needs lawyers when you've got a perfectly timed belly flop?" Monday morning, I brewed coffee, opened the back door, and Max, as usual, was sprawled on the warm patio tiles. The red pool still shimmered, calm, cool, regal in that weirdly dessert royalty kind of way. And today, after weeks of clipboards, drama, live streams, and one history-making belly flop, Karen was about to be dethroned. I didn't go to the meeting. I didn't need to. When your gelatin pool has become a neighborhood symbol of HOA resistance, there's no need to speak, only to stay still, with timing. The meeting lasted less than 40 minutes. At exactly 10:38 a.m., I received a text from Paul. Vote was 5-0, no debate. "Karen's out. We'll send an official letter this afternoon." I looked at Max. He gave one bark. I said, "This win, it's not just for me. It's for every person fined for putting up Christmas lights too early, for every wind chime silenced as noise pollution, for every homeowner side-eyed for planting the wrong-colored flowers." That afternoon at 3 p.m., Paul knocked on my door. No clipboard. Just a white envelope and a look of profound relief. Inside, a formal apology from the HOA board, a $200 pool cleaning voucher, and a handwritten note from Paul himself. "Thanks for doing what none of us had the guts to do," I chuckled. Paul, "I didn't do anything special. I just poured Jell-O at the right moment." He nodded. "Sometimes it's the right person, right time, right gelatin." The next day, Karen moved out. No farewell. No, "I've been misunderstood" speech. Just a pickup truck, stacks of cardboard boxes, and a for sale sign staked in the lawn. One neighbor snapped a photo and posted it to the group. Gates closed, and the HOA finally exhaled. In her place, Nancy, the elderly woman once, fined for letting her cat roam after HOA hours, was elected interim president. First thing she did? Canceled the no non-blue pools rule, legalized year-round decorative lights, and asked me to host a community event. Thus, the Jello and Neighbors Festival was born. I didn't market it out loud, just hand-wrote a sign, Saturday 12th. "PM, if you bring a spoon, you're welcome." That Saturday, my yard was more packed than Greg's wedding. Kids ran circles around the pool. Adults laughed. One old man shrugged and discreetly tossed a marshmallow into the Jell-O just to see if it floats. Paul gave a short speech. Not everyone has the guts to pour gelatin on a clipboard's authority, but today we thank the one who did. And woke this whole street up. Applause. I raised my iced tea. Max licked a laughing toddler's cheek. A little while later, I saw Julia, the bride from that chaotic wedding, walk over, wearing a simple tee, camera in hand. "I'm filming a vlog about the whole thing," she said. "Didn't expect the craziest part of my wedding day would be the one thing keeping me laughing for weeks." We stood by the pool. She lifted her camera. I held the ceremonial wooden spoon. Caption appeared, "The man who defeated an HOA with gelatin." That video would later hit over 2 million views. Online, they called me the Jell-O King, the Gelatinator, the HOA Slayer with cherry red justice. I didn't trademark it, but I did hang the spoon, right next to a sign that reads, "Caution, dessert in progress." 2 weeks. Later, the HOA bylaws were updated. Section 12.3b. No one may use private property for community purposes without written consent. Section 12.3c. Gelatin is not classified as vandalism material. Unless it contains rum as for me? I went back to normal life. The pool, still occasionally, changes colors. Next summer, I tried mint green. Someone said it looked like detox water. I said, "Nope, that's detox from our old HOA." And Max? He still lies on the patio, head resting, eyes watching the wobbly red ripples. expression as if to say, it's just gelatin, but it's freedom gelatin. If there's a lesson in all this, maybe it's never underestimate someone with conviction and 200 boxes of Jell-O. Sometimes, a wooden spoon is sharper than every HOA bylaw combined. Karen thought clipboards and death stares were all it took to control a neighborhood. But turns out, a wooden spoon and some cherry gelatin had more power than all the HOA meetings combined. She lost her position, her authority, and her privilege to plan weddings in other people's backyards. As for me, I didn't crash a wedding. I built a gelatin fortress against overreach, and I'll do it again. Anytime Karen crosses the fence, uninvited.